All right, well, we'll go ahead and talk now about what's called the square of opposition, which is basically a relationship that the four standard form categorical propositions have to one another. And so you see it laid out here with A in the upper left, meaning an A statement, right? And then E statements to the right, I and O, as you see here on the screen. So most importantly, with regard to the square of opposition, for our purposes, what we need to understand is that A and O statements, right? A and O statements are, as it says here, contradictory. And so that means if you have an A statement that's true, what we'll call the corresponding O statement must be false, right? Must have opposite truth values, as it says at the bottom of the screen. So in other words, let me actually fix this a little bit. Yeah. Okay. If you have all cats are mammals, right? That's the A statement. And then the corresponding O statement would be some cats are not mammals. So when I say corresponding O statement, I mean that the subject term is the same from the first statement to the second. So we're dealing with cats there, and then we have mammals here. So that's when the subject and predicate terms match up from the first statement to the second. And of course, again, what we're seeing here is that the first statement is true, all cats are mammals. Every single cat there is would be a mammal, right? If there are any cats at all, it's got to be a mammal. And at the same time, it has to be false that there's at least one cat that's not a mammal, right? So that's a quick way to see the A and the O statements being contradictory. And then, just let me get rid of this here. Oop, there we go. Okay, we need to just quickly talk about the I and E statements, right? And so we'll take an E statement that is true, like, and we'll just stick with cats again because it's easy. No cats are reptiles, for example. So that's the E statement. And then the corresponding I statement would be some cats are reptiles. Okay, so again, we have, as I just said, the corresponding subject terms line up, the corresponding predicate terms line up, so we can compare these. And so what we're saying here is that no cats are reptiles. Of course, that is true. You can't find any cats at all that are reptiles. The corresponding, that's the E statement. The corresponding I statement then would be some cats are reptiles. And of course, if it's true that no cats are reptiles, it has to be false that some cats are reptiles. In other words, there cannot exist a cat that is also a reptile. And so that's what we're talking about here when we say contradictory. Now, the other relationships that you see here marked out in this red line from the A to the E and so forth, those are not guaranteed relationships. So in other words, if you know an A statement is true, then you don't necessarily know if the corresponding E statement is true or false. And likewise, all around this square of opposition. I will illustrate why that is in the next video here. But the thing to emphasize is that for our purposes, you just need to focus on the fact that A and O statements have to have opposite truth values, and E and I statements have to have opposite truth values, again, when the subject and predicate terms are the same from one to the other, okay? But we'll look at the other aspects of this here in the next video.